Before we begin, viewers are advised that the following content is intended solely for educational and entertainment purposes. What follows is the verbatim courtroom testimony from the federal trial of Sean Diddy Combs, as reported by Inner City Press.
This is where we take source material, you send our way things you're curious about, and really break them down.
Yeah, extract the key stuff, give you the insights you need, fast track you, basically.
Exactly. So today we're digging into something pretty intense. Allegations, testimony coming out of the trial involving Sean Diddy Combs, specifically how Tupac Shakur's old unreleased interview has popped back up.
Right, we've got excerpts from a YouTube transcript that's reporting on federal court testimony. Well, it's a lot.
Okay, so our mission here, for you listening, is to get a handle on the main claims being made, the supposed warnings from Tupac, and, what it all might mean for the music industry.
The core source is this testimony, focusing on this interview that's been unheard for decades.
So the setup is, this legendary unreleased Tupac interview suddenly resurfaces right in the middle of all this Diddy stuff, suggesting Tupac might have seen this coming way back when.
It's pretty wild. This Angie Martinez interview from '96, it's kind of mythical in hip-hop circles. 2 hour long, apparently.
And only 10 minutes ever saw the light of day.
Exactly, just 10 minutes. Now, the original explanation, the one everyone heard for years, was that Angie Martinez herself held it back.
Right, because of the East Coast, West Coast beef. That it would just pour gasoline on the fire.
Which, seemed plausible at the time. That conflict was serious. Very real danger involved.
But this transcript we have suggests something else entirely. According to Gene Deal, described as one of Diddy's closest men.
Yeah, his testimony flips that narrative. He claims it wasn't Angie's call. He says Diddy was the one who stopped it from airing.
Think about that. Diddy, even back in '96, allegedly having the clout to shut down an interview on, Hot 97, a major station.
It really makes you wonder about power dynamics back then.
Yeah.
Deal describes Tupac in that interview as calm but dangerous.
Calm but dangerous.
How so?
Like he was delivering warning shots hidden as commentary. Subtle but pointed.
Okay, were these shots aimed at anyone specific? Well, Tupac called himself a lightning rod and talked about attacking New York's finest, their self-proclaimed king of New York.
Self-proclaimed king.
Okay. And the report connects that directly to Diddy.
Yeah, the interpretation in the report is that Tupac was aiming right at Diddy, just without, saying his name outright.
So what was Tupac supposedly seeing in Diddy back then?
According to this testimony, Tupac perceived things like manipulation, insecurity, and that Diddy got power not from respect, but from silence, people being quiet around him.
Wow. And it got even more specific, right? Something about New York.
Yeah, Tupac apparently said Diddy only repped New York when it helped him, otherwise he was just, another rapper, and that the industry essentially let him wear your colors.
That's a heavy accusation.
Yeah.
Calling out his authenticity, his motives.
Definitely. And the fact this tape is resurfacing now during this trial, the report calls it potentially the final nail in the coffin for what it terms the unraveling of a machine. Okay, so Tupac had these alleged warnings locked away in this interview. What other testimony or evidence is coming out now that seems to back up his concerns?
Well, Cassie Ventura's testimony is obviously central here. She described an atmosphere of intense control.
Right, things like rituals, having her phone taken away.
Exactly. Her choices being erased, feeling absorbed into his world, not really invited. It definitely resonates with Tupac's alleged observations about manipulation.
And then Gene Deal, Diddy's former associate, he directly confirms Diddy had the tape.
He does. Says Diddy possessed it and buried it. His quote was stark. You weren't protecting anything, you were hiding everything.
Hiding everything. That implies motive, right? A deliberate cover-up.
It certainly suggests that. And Deal added something else pretty chilling. He recalled Diddy saying about Tupac talks too much, and one day someone's going to shut him up.
Whoa, okay. In hindsight, that sounds ominous.
Very. Deal also framed Diddy's focus on Tupac as personal, driven by envy, not just business rivalry.
Envy, like how?
He gave examples, like Diddy copying Tupac's Versace style, mimicking his speeches, even down to, reportedly, a Grammy acceptance speech.
Copying a Grammy speech, that's next level. It sounds like an obsession.
That's the picture Deal painted. He described Diddy's whole operation, his alleged empire, as built on surveillance, control, secrets. Talked about footage and payoffs to keep people quiet.
Surveillance and payoffs?
Yeah.
It sounds like something out of a movie.
And maybe the most unsettling part, Deal remembered Tupac himself saying, Diddy might be playing with something dark.
Something dark. What did he mean by that?
It's vague, but it suggests Tupac sensed something really off beyond just industry politics.
And then Monique showed up. That was unexpected.
Completely. Her testimony really widened the lens. She claimed people protected Diddy not because they liked him, but to protect their own jobs, their seats at the table.
She named names too, didn't she? Big names.
Yeah, she mentioned Tyler Perry, Oprah, various executives, media heads,
Yeah.
saying they were part of this ecosystem that allowed things to happen.
So her point was, this isn't just about Cassie or Diddy anymore.
Exactly. She argued the trial is now looking at the whole system, the entire ecosystem that she believes enabled this kind of behavior for so long.
So while Diddy is the focus, Gene Deal suggests Tupac saw him as part of something bigger.
That's right. Like Diddy was a gatekeeper for something. Well, darker and larger within the industry.
And Tupac was getting worried about more than just Diddy.
Apparently, yes. Deal said Tupac was increasingly alarmed. He saw strange behavior, saw young artists tied to contracts they couldn't escape.
And when he voiced these concerns,
They were dismissed, basically, labeled as paranoia.
which sounds familiar in these kinds of stories, Suge Knight backed this up too.
According to the report, yes. Suge quoted Tupac saying, "Something ain't right about Puff. I don't know what it is yet, but it's coming."
It's coming. And Tupac was planning to go public with this.
The report alleges he was. He wanted to warn younger artists, protect them from potential exploitation he was seeing.
So he was starting to see past the glamour, the smoke and mirrors.
Yeah, seeing the concrete and control underneath it all. The actual structure of power.
Which brings us to the Quad Studio shooting, November '94. That has to be mentioned.
Absolutely critical moment. Tupac, ambushed, robbed, shot 5 times inside a recording studio building.
And his first thought was, bad boy.
Immediately. He believed it was a setup, linked to them. His reasoning partly was that Biggie and Diddy were actually in the same building when it happened.
And they didn't come check on him.
According to him, no. No concern shown, no visit. That felt deeply suspicious to Tupac. And then there was that track.
Who shot you, right? The timing and the lyrics.
Made his suspicions even stronger. It felt like they were mocking him, or worse.
And Gene Deal's testimony adds to this.
Deal talked about murmurs inside Bad Boy after the shooting. Said some people were laughing, nobody seemed surprised. That's
Yeah.
deeply unsettling.
For Tupac, it seems that was the moment everything changed. He reportedly said later, while he was in jail, that moment taught me the game, the rules, the snakes. So his view of Diddy shifted dramatically then, from just a rival.
To a suspect. Someone potentially involved in trying to kill him.
And this alleged obsession Deal talked about, Diddy wanting to be Tupac.
Yeah, copying the style, the walk, the talk.
Yeah.
Even, as Deal claimed, hijacking his Grammy speech. It wasn't just admiration, it was portrayed as something much more intense.
Did it affect Diddy's other relationships?
The report claims it did. It mentions things got hostile with Kim Porter, apparently after she kept bringing up Tupac.
And Tupac noticed this.
He seemingly did. Deal quotes Tupac saying something like, "That man wants to be me so bad he'll do anything, even hurt him," suggesting Diddy's own actions stem from this deep insecurity.
Hurt himself. Or hurt Tupac.
The quote implies Diddy's actions, driven by this desire, could even be self-destructive, or maybe hurt Tupac. It's a bit ambiguous, but points to a dangerous level of fixation.
And Tupac apparently took it even further, right?
Right.
Something about immortality.
Yet Deal relayed Tupac's alleged belief that Diddy wanted immortality and he'll bury anyone to get it. That's it. A really dark assessment of someone's ambition.
But Tupac wasn't just focused on Diddy, you were saying. He saw bigger problems.
Exactly. His concerns grew to encompass the whole industry. He started saying things like black music was being used as a weapon.
A weapon? How?
He started connecting dots, apparently,
Yeah.
between the corporations that owned record labels and the private prison industry.
Whoa. Okay, explain that.
His theory, as reported, was that lyrics pushing destructive lifestyles weren't just reflecting reality, they were like bait, leading young people, particularly black youth, towards paths that ended in jail.
Follow this life and you follow it right into a cage. That was his quote.
That's the quote site. He felt the industry was maybe deliberately funneling people into the prison system, which certain corporations then profited from.
And positive messages got sidelined.
That was his frustration. He reportedly said, "You try to rap about uplifting your people, suddenly the budget's gone." No support for that content.
Which sounds eerily similar to what prosecutors are now alleging about Diddy's own methods. This idea of a pipeline of control.
It does parallel, doesn't it? The report also brings in Will Smith's reported feeling of being initiated into the industry, but then feeling trapped.
And Monique hinting that Diddy was protecting people higher up.
Right. It all points to something systemic. Tupac supposedly said, when you trace the money, it doesn't end at Bad Boy, it ends at the boardroom.
The boardroom. Corporate level.
That was his implication. He talked about shadow deals, rewarding destructive content, and punishing positive messages. He kept asking, who benefits from the chaos?
That's a huge question. So all of this context leads to where the trial seems to be heading now.
It seems so. The focus is apparently broadening, considering the possibility, and it's still just a possibility being explored legally, of Diddy's involvement in Tupac's actual murder.
Because of this pattern, the fear, the silence, the control.
Exactly. You look at the testimonies together, Cassie, Monique, Deal, even the mention of Will Smith's feelings, it paints a consistent picture of alleged manipulation and control.
And the tapes. There are mentions of tapes.
Yes, the report mentions the existence of tapes, audio, and video, hinting at something potentially much larger. Cover-ups, maybe even involvement in murder. But again,
Prosecutors haven't formally made that link. Yet.
crucial point, not yet. But Tupac's own fears, back then, feeling betrayed by the industry, feeling watched, they certainly land differently now.
The theory being floated is that he was the first casualty in a war of silence.
That's the phrase used in the report, yeah. That maybe he knew too much or was about to expose too much.
And the perception of Tupac himself is changing in that courtroom. No longer just paranoid.
It seems that way. Like maybe he saw the snakes more clearly than anyone realized at the time, which leaves the biggest question hanging.
Was Diddy involved in Tupac's murder?
That's the elephant in the room now. Still unanswered officially, but definitely being looked at.
Okay, so wrapping this deep dive up, what we've seen is this old, buried interview with Tupac emerging right alongside trial testimonies. And together, they paint this really disturbing picture. Allegations of manipulation, intense control, maybe truths hidden for decades.
Yeah, it's like Tupac's warnings, dismissed for so long, are suddenly getting this dramatic public validation.
It makes you see Tupac differently, maybe. Not just as an artist, but someone who was really studying the game, seeing patterns others missed.
Absolutely. And that unreleased interview becomes incredibly important. What exactly is on the rest of that tape? Where is it now? Those questions feel urgent.
Definitely. So the final thought for you, listening. When you take all this in the testimony, the history, Tupac's alleged foresight, what does it suggest about how power really works in entertainment?
And how might this whole situation change how we look at other stories, other narratives we've been told about the industry? It's more than just this one case, potentially. Lots to chew on there.